A lot of you are familiar with the DNA Project and have been rocking with us for a while, but some of you aren't. A lot of you are faithful listeners of the podcast, but aren't familiar with some of the other work that we do. So I just want to take a quick moment to explain to you a little bit more of what we do. So you're getting married, or you have a friend, a cousin, a sister, somebody you know is getting married. Okay. You've booked your venue, caterers, photographer, all that good stuff. When it comes to live music, most people have no idea where to look. We have you covered. Picture this. During the ceremony, while guests are being seated, or while the bride's walking down the aisle. During the cocktail hour, while guests are just mingling and having a good time. Don't forget about dinner music. That's very important to set the mood while guests eat. And we definitely can't forget the party. Let's get the party started right now with the DNA Project. www.thednaproject.ca for more information.
Hello, bonjour, and wagwan, everyone. Thank you for listening to another episode of the DNA Airwaves. Each episode of this podcast is filmed, produced, recorded, mixed, and all that good stuff right here at the MPL in Toronto. The MPL in Toronto is a combination of film and audio studios dedicated to making all things visual look amazing and all things audio sound brilliant. Please check them out at the-MPL, that's maple without the vowels.com for more details. This podcast is also brought to you by the DNA Project, your one-stop shop for all your live entertainment needs. Please check them out before your next event online at thednaproject.ca. Our guest today is Sarah Rose Black. Now, for those of you that have been around since the beginning, which is probably not many of you, she was on episode 17, and she was one of the founders and coordinators of the first music therapy program at the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre in Kensington Hospice in Toronto. On that episode, we kind of dived into the use of music and the therapeutic relationship that it has to promote health and well-being. So we wanted to have Sarah Rose come back on the show and chat with us a little bit more about the program and how far it's come since we spoke with her a year ago. Any updates that she might want to share with us and our audience, and see what's going on for the program in the future. Another great chat about a really cool application of music, and we hope you guys enjoy it. This is the DNA Airwaves.
Okay, we're rolling.
Well,
that's good.
Hold on. Can you say something?
I'm saying things. Words are coming out of my mouth. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart
All right.
be acceptable in thy sight.
Yeah, your volume's good.
Okay. Sarah,
Hello.
welcome back.
Thank you for inviting me back.
Thank you for coming. It was great that we were able to catch up after, I think it's been over a year now.
Yes.
Right?
Just about, yeah.
Sorry, real quick, gentlemen, I always neglect you as well. How are you guys doing today?
Feeling neglected.
Feeling neglected?
Yeah, feeling all right.
I hear you, buddy. Yeah, I don't want to just hijack the beginning, but we're excited to have Sarah Black with us. Sarah Rose Black, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I get weirded out with the hyphenations because I never know if it's Sarah Rose or Sarah Rose Black or Sarah Black. But
I'll
it's Sarah
answer
Rose
to any
Black.
of it.
And there's no hyphen, is there?
There's no hyphen.
Just one.
It's just one word? Rose Black?
My parents got creative.
No,
Sarah
Sarah
Rose,
Rose.
one word,
Sarah Rose.
and then Black, my last name.
Oh.
That makes it easier, right?
That does make it easier. Damn.
Yeah, so actually the last time you were here, we had a lot of interest. And still to this day, people are talking about the music therapy episode that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So we're back for round 2. And for those new listeners, because we have a lot of those since the last time we chatted, can you just give an overview of what music therapy is? Maybe we'll start there.
It's always my favorite question to answer, so happy to dive in with that. Music therapy is the intentional and clinical use of music in a setting to achieve goals that are related to health.
Right.
So the big difference between performative music and entertainment is that a music therapist walks in with an agenda to create some kind of support for a person. And that can be someone in a healthcare system. So I work in a hospital.
Yeah.
So I use music intentionally to do things like reduce anxiety and shift mood and improve pain management and create space for end-of-life work and trauma work. So another music therapist might do something around rehabilitation or working with kids or working with the elderly, but we're always going in with goals in mind, which we create with the people we work with.
Yeah.
But we also come with ideas on how to optimize wellness and health.
And what does that typically look like when you say optimizing health for someone, and I might be wrong, but you said near the end of life? How does wellness, because to me that's kind of like an oxymoron, but how would you prepare for, wellness in that type of environment, I guess?
This is such a good question. It does feel like an oxymoron when you talk about wellness and quality of life when someone is dying. But what I go in and observe is how well is this person's pain managed? How comfortable are they right now? What's going on with their family in the room? How can I create space for them to grieve, to be together, to share silence, to share stories? And how can I create optimal comfort for somebody at end of life? So that can be, like I said, pain management, but that can also be surrounding them with memories that are dear to their hearts. So if you're lying there listening to songs that are reflective of something important in your life, that can be wellness in a time of physical decline.
That makes sense. And how long have you been doing this?
I started my training in 2012 and I started working almost 10 years ago. Is that right? Nope, I take it back. I started training before then because I've been working at Princess Margaret almost 10 years. Wow. I walked into Princess Margaret in 2012. That's right.
Sorry, anyone feel free to jump in.
No, we're just watching here.
But since the last time we spoke, can you maybe just tell us some of the updates that you've been able to, or some of the accomplishments or achievements that you've been able to achieve since we've spoken last?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that question. And I'm grateful for the DNA Project support. It's always nice to be able to be asked about the work and share the work more broadly.
Absolutely.
Because it does happen in a bit of a vacuum when I'm in the hospital or at the bedside.
Yeah.
So since we last spoke, I became the editor of the Canadian Journal of Music Therapy. So that's been really lovely. Thank you. To get to curate Canadian music therapy research and work with authors to publish it.
It's huge.
A lot of young authors too, which is great.
Yeah.
I've had 3 wonderful music therapy graduate students train with me over the course of 4 months. And the program continues to grow. But one of the most exciting things, which I can't wait to share, is I have been able to start using a digital stethoscope. And that's thanks to your amazing support. I couldn't have done it without you. So
Awesome. Yeah, our pleasure.
I've been able to record patient heartbeats and use them within songs that I've written with patients. And that's been really special.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I love it.
Digital stethoscope.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
How does that work? So it goes into a USB recorder, and that kind of leads me to the next question, just about technique. What kind of things do you do, and what motivates different techniques?
This is such a great question too. So I'll take a step back. If you can picture, I walk around in the hospital with a keyboard on wheels, on a cart, and I carry different instruments with me. And those include auxiliary percussion, so small drums, an ocean drum that sounds like waves. I use singing bowls to create resonant sounds. I might have a ukulele, I might have a guitar, but mostly I use the keyboard and my voice. So it's 95% live music in the room with the patient.
Yeah.
And in terms of specific techniques, it depends on what the patient needs. So if someone's telling me, look, I'm exhausted, I didn't sleep last night, can you help me just rest?
Right.
So I might do something receptive where I'm playing based on their requests and they're falling asleep, closing their eyes. I might do a guided meditation with live music.
Yeah.
I might be asked to play the same song over and over again because it's what they need in that moment because it's comforting. But alternatively, if someone is a little more wakeful and wanting to engage a bit more, they may actually play music with me or sing with me. And it's nice to be able to hand them an instrument that is light and easy to use.
For sure.
And I do a lot of songwriting. So that's where the stethoscope comes in. So it doesn't matter if someone has never touched an instrument in their life. I will see anyone at any stage. The exciting thing is you don't need any musical experience to take part in music therapy. Human beings are inherently musical, I like to say, by virtue of the fact that we have a heartbeat and we have rhythms coursing through our body all the time, from birth to death. So some colleagues in the States and around the world have been doing great work with recording patient heartbeats. So I literally will go in and record it. And then I will use that recording, which Bluetooths to my phone. It's just a direct Bluetooth, so it's super easy. And I will embed their heartbeat over a song that we've written together. And that often becomes a gift to the family if someone's at end of life. But even if someone just wants to create something for self-expression.
For sure. And how long is the process that you have to create the song with the patient?
So for some patients, time is of the essence if they're declining and doing really, it's really kind of struggling with their health. So it can happen in as short as a 20 to 30 minute session. It can happen over a period of several weeks if that's what the patient prefers, to really take their time and invest in creating the lyrics and creating song structure with me. But I remember a patient years ago. She was very excited about writing a song, and she said, "Come back tomorrow." And I went back, but she had declined so much overnight, she could barely speak to me. And I said, "I'm back. How can I be helpful?" And she said, "I have 3 words: love, hope, and peace." And that was pretty much all she could give me. And I said, "Do you want me to, take those words and create something with them?" So I just used those 3 words with my voice on a loop, with some piano music in the background, and that became her song that she gave to her grandchildren. And I kind of improvised on that.
It's beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
It's a really good gift to give someone. Especially at that stage.
I'm struggling. It's an interesting conversation for today because Sarah Rose, I lost my grandmother on Monday this week. So I'm trying to keep it together here, but...
Thank you for sharing that. I'm so sorry for your huge loss.
I thought it was going to be a little easier, but we're talking about a lot of end-of-life stuff, and I'm like, holy... But given the work that you do, I imagine there would have been a lot of challenges bringing this type of treatment to hospitals, because just for people in that position, families especially, I know just to get the right type of care that individuals need is a challenge on its own. So I'm wondering how you were able to overcome obstacles and probably have to convince people that what you do actually works. Was there science that you had to go with that, or is it something that you have been able to prove just through practice?
It's such an interesting question, and thank you for sharing such a personal example of what you've been through and bringing that in. People are often skeptical when I'm walking around the hospital with musical instruments, or they make comments around, where's the concert? Or, where's the party? And it's so the opposite of a party sometimes, right? When I'm with people, it's so serious.
Different types,
But not always. Sometimes it's very lighthearted. And, a person asked me for Janis Joplin yesterday, and all she wanted to do was rock out to Janis Joplin. It can be light.
Yeah, for sure.
But yes, there has to be an evidence base. And luckily, there's a lot of wonderful research in our field. I feel privileged to have been able to take part in research. So there's that component that we get to do very intentional research around the role of music and examine what happens to people when they're listening to music, both from a very quantitative perspective, what's happening to their heart rate, what's happening to their brain, and a qualitative perspective, what's their experience, what are they feeling and processing. So those 2 pieces are helpful. But I find what is the most convincing is when a nurse or a doctor is in the room with me and they see it. They're watching it. And suddenly they find themselves a bit tearful, or they find themselves singing along. So the stories I tell and then the experiences that I share with my colleagues often speaks volumes more than the research.
Absolutely.
What kind of research do you do?
So a few different types. I'm very much a qualitative girl. I'm very interested in people's experiences.
Yeah.
And through my PhD work, I looked at the experience of music therapy while someone was having an assisted death, which has become legal in Canada over the past 6 years. You can choose to have a medically assisted death.
I didn't know that.
And what I found were a lot of my patients were asking me to be with them during their assisted death. And I thought, why? Why do they want music?
Yeah.
So that became incentive for my questions. So I had 10 incredible people willing to participate in research, plus their family members.
Yeah.
I recorded all of our sessions and I pulled out the themes from those sessions. What's going on in their experience and what's the same session to session and person to person.
Yeah.
So I wrote that up as a study. But on a different note, I'm really interested in the experience of young adults with cancer using music to process their experience. So I have a research project going where we run groups with young adults and they engage in music therapy. They improvise, they play drums with us, they write songs with us. And then we look at how they feel connected to the people in the group with them. Do
Right.
they feel more engaged? Do they feel more supported? Things like that.
Are there any brain scans or any that sort of thing? Have you done that?
So I haven't personally, but I have colleagues at, for example, different facilities who look at, neuroimaging, brain scans, measuring things very specific. A lot happens with the elderly, with older adults,
Yep.
with dementia, and you see the brain light up in all of these different places. So
Right.
not my area of expertise, but there's a lot of great stuff out there.
There is, okay.
During those, when somebody asks you or wants you to be there in their final moments, what is that experience like for you? Is it taxing? Is it something that sometimes you're like, I can't do this week anymore, I need a break? How does that feel? Or is it something that's just, part of the job and you've learned to get used to it?
Thanks for asking that. It depends on the week. And yes, it's challenging at times, sometimes more than others. It depends on what's going on in my personal life
Right.
too.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that we put into place as therapists so we can show up the next day and the next day. And that includes things like personal therapy. That includes supervision. So I have colleagues and people senior to me who I
Right.
can talk to, who I do talk to regularly. I do a lot of peer-to-peer support. So I can call my music therapy friends and say, oh my God, this happened. Can I just talk it through?
Yeah.
Because it was really hard. And I have to learn how to take breaks and not just go room to room to room and pause in between and acknowledge if I'm having a hard day, but also acknowledge that when I'm in the room, that person's experience is not my experience. That's not a family member of mine. And I have to kind of separate myself a little bit.
Yeah.
But I tell my students, it's okay to cry in the room. That's very empathic if a family sees you connecting and becoming emotional. That's
Yeah.
normal.
For sure. Do you ever get compassion fatigue?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't really know anyone who doesn't within my group of colleagues.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? And I guess there's another part of my question is for like some people like myself, music is kind of my therapy. But if you're doing musical therapy all the time, do you have any personal musical therapy time for yourself, or do you just see it as like that's work now and you don't really do the music as like a hobby or a way to kind of escape the stress of work? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. That's so intuitive that you ask that because I've struggled with that.
For sure.
My husband's a musician too, and people
Right.
often say, do you guys play together all the time? And,
Yeah.
Because it's work for both of us, we
Exactly.
don't as much these days. We have a ton in the past, but I have to separate music for work and music for fun.
Right,
And there are days when, no, I don't want to play music for
Yeah.
myself. And there are days when I need to play music for myself or sing. So yes, compassion fatigue is so real. I love doing things that are totally not related to my job, like running, biking, being outside,
Yeah.
reading, writing, just separating, but also leaning right in. And I've done songwriting for myself about my patients that I just keep very personal because I need to express
For sure.
how much they've impacted me.
Yeah.
But it's a balance.
How important is the exercise element? Because I find anytime I personally am in a weird headspace or feeling emotional, that exercise or getting outside is vital. Like I don't know what it is. I have no scientific data to back it up, but I feel better every time I go on for a bike ride or go for a run, and I can think and like there's clarity, and I don't know, there's a bunch. So is exercise vital, do you think, for your not therapy, but for your release? And would you probably share with others that that's probably a number one or two in life, as far as like anyone, because it's not just in your field, like everybody gets stressed. And I think for me, just running and exercise is just so important. And I was wondering if you feel the same way, like after a run or after you do that exercise, do you feel like, okay, I can get through this?
You said it so well. You articulated it all. Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
I encourage, I mean, it's such a big deal in my life to find movement and exercise, but I encourage my trainees and my peers, go out for a walk. Have you stretched today? Have you moved? Because we carry experiences in our bodies. So when I'm at the bedside and someone's having a very visceral experience of pain, we're in it with them. We don't experience it, but we watch it, we witness, and that we can hold that in our bodies.
Absolutely.
So to your point, I make it a very regular practice to move. The way that I actually get into work every day is mostly running. So I'm a run commuter or I'm a biker to work and back. And that has made all of the difference to start my day that way and then end my day that way.
For sure, I could imagine.
A big deal, yeah.
Getting that out before you get in the door must be so important. That's awesome. Sorry, I've been talking too much.
No, these are great questions. So I asked you a little bit about the resistance possibly from the hospital. What about families, though? Do you ever get any resistance from families when patients may have heard of you or seen your work and request you, and then you have to deal with others who maybe don't believe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's incredible how resistant people can be. And often it can come from a place of unknowing or maybe a little bit of fear and a little bit of wanting to protect their loved ones. So families are often like, no, it's too much. It's too emotional. She doesn't need that. He doesn't need that.
Yeah.
We have our own music. We're playing music on a recording. I always encourage that and I never push it.
Yeah.
But also at such a tender time, sometimes it's tricky to even get into the room. And I never want to force that.
Right.
Sometimes it's helpful if another staff member introduces me, like a doctor or a nurse, and introduces the fact that I'm in there with a specific purpose.
Right.
And just to follow up on that too, because I guess introducing it to families or patients even, is the therapy based on more of just helping people feel better during that stage, or is there any aspect of, I guess, recovery or rehab involved through music?
Both, I would say. I do very specific things that are physical, like heartbeat regulation or regulating someone's breathing through music. But if someone is on the road to recovery, post-chemotherapy, maybe they're what we would call deconditioned, they haven't been moving as much.
Right.
Sometimes they want some motivation to kind of get out of bed and move their arms and move their bodies. And I might use music to motivate that. Yeah. Because often our motor cortex in our brain is activated when we listen to music at a certain tempo. And what's neat is people, as you can imagine, feel motivated to move. If you think about yourself exercising or yourself even dancing, it's way easier with good music.
For sure.
It's the same principle. So yes, rehabilitation can be a big part of what my role is.
And that's also why a lot of dance music and electronic music in general is almost always 120 beats per minute, because that's twice the resting heart rate.
Exactly. And why I often tune in at 60 beats per minute when I'm trying to regulate someone's heartbeat. So to your point, exactly. Yeah.
Science. Beautiful.
Science. Yeah. And now there's evidence that there are about 40,000 neurons on the heart itself, which gives the idea that the heart does some thinking as well. So that idea that, you feel things in your heart, it's not completely just emotional. There's an actual, possibly scientific reason for that as well. So it's making more and more sense how using sound and pulses and visuals and any other senses with rhythm, when you sync that up to what the heart rate is supposed to be, how your brain and your heart might start reacting to that. Do you find are there any things you're like, ugh, that's a bad chord, I shouldn't play that again?
Yes, but it often has to do with people's associations or their experiences. There's no kind of one objective bad sound. It all depends on what you associate it with. Because I might hear something and think that was the best thing I've ever heard, but you might hear it and say, oh, that was horrible. So it's very subjective. I mean, sometimes I just straight up make mistakes, and that sucks if I'm trying to play a song that someone knows.
Right.
And sometimes people have preferences. Often they do. But I find music can be re-triggering or re-traumatizing if it's associated with a negative event.
Right.
And there are extreme examples of that. Music is used as torture in some settings, certainly in war zones.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So music can also be overstimulating. If I'm too loud, that can be painful for somebody. So there's no one objective wrong thing to do. There are lots of wrong things I could do depending on the person.
And you just kind of figure it out on the go? Because actually, were you the first program of this nature in, was it Ontario or Canada or... I
stand on the shoulders of many, many wonderful people, but I was the first at Princess Margaret
Okay, so
and Kensington Hospice. Yeah.
Okay, got you.
How widespread is it through Ontario now and Canada, I guess?
It's huge. I'm so
huge.
excited to
That's
say.
awesome.
Lots of major hospitals in the GTA have beautiful music therapy programs.
Great.
And those include big teaching hospitals like Sunnybrook, St. Mike's. Sick Kids has a huge program, and it has had a program for almost 2 decades, I think. So I'm certainly not the first, but Princess Margaret didn't have anybody, so I was excited to build something there.
Absolutely. Now, as someone, say I was to get sick or I had a family member sick, how would someone as a patient or a family member of a patient get musical therapy? Like, I wouldn't even know how to go about it in some of the hospitals in my area, and probably they just look at me like, we got a speaker that you can use. How do patients in the GTA ask, or even like who would be the best person to ask for that type of service or therapy or option?
If the hospital offers music therapy, chances are it will be advertised somewhere, or you ask your nurse. But you're right. Most patients don't know, even though I try and promote it as much as I can at the hospital. So staff are my advocates and allies in that. Okay. But for a place that doesn't have a program, a lot of music therapists work in private practice. So you can actually hire one as you would a therapist through 2 different platforms. And I'm happy to say a lot of music therapy is covered through insurance if your therapist is also a psychotherapist, which I am, a lot of my colleagues are. So you can actually hire someone to work with you. And a lot of folks do that for family members or for themselves. So I'll share the Music Therapy Association of Ontario. If you give them a Google, you can find a therapist very easily. And the Canadian Association of Music Therapy, same thing.
That's awesome. Oh, sorry.
That makes me wonder. You said you're a licensed therapist, so sort of like with acupuncture and I don't want to make this controversial, in other fields, crack. Maybe that'll tell you. Do you find that there are just charlatans who buy a couple of sound baths and like, I'm a therapist now, and they don't really help people? Or how are the qualifications coming into play here?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm glad you brought this up, and we're fighting so hard in our profession to talk about what it means to be credentialed.
Yeah.
So the 2 credentials you want to look for if you're looking for a music therapist, MTA in Canada, music therapist accredited, or MTBC, music therapist board certified. A hospital won't really hire someone unless they are legit. So you know that if you're in a healthcare space, chances are you're working with a licensed therapist.
Or if it's covered by insurance, it must be as well, right? I would assume insurance company's not going to.
Exactly. Right. So the way that music therapists are covered through insurance is through their registered psychotherapist designation, so RP. And that's legit. That's through the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario, which requires many, many hoops and training to get through. So yes, there are posers all over the place, people who charge a lot of money for not a lot of training. Right. And that's tricky for our profession. But MTA, MTBC, RP, those are those credentials you're looking for.
So follow up, what's the accreditation like? Do they blindfold you and give you a piano, or What do they do?
I should do that with my students. Make them do that. So you have to have a degree, either an undergraduate. Many people rather, have graduate degrees in music therapy from a specific training space. So Wilfrid Laurier University, Concordia, U of T, Capilano, a lot of schools in Canada offer designated training, tons in the States and around the world. So first off, you have your degree, then you go through your certification, which includes a 1,000-hour internship. So I'm proud to be a music therapy supervisor. I take students through 500 hours. They're with me for 4 months if they want to train in cancer care and palliative care. But people can intern a lot of different places. So they're with a trained supervisor. They get their 1,000 hours. They have to write an exam. There's multiple steps, but that's generally what it looks like. So it takes several years.
Okay.
So also, do you still wear some of the other hats? Because you were, I guess, musician, then teacher, now therapist. Do you still have opportunities to teach? And actually, scratch that question. You can answer that after. But how did you get there? Like, how did you go from musician to teacher to therapist?
Ooh, I love that question. So, like many young kids, I was signed up to piano lessons from a young age. I was a Suzuki piano kid and very proud to be.
And you didn't quit like most, which is the big thing.
I didn't somehow. I don't know if that was because I genuinely loved it. There was part of that, or I just knew I had to keep going to a certain point. But my parents made it really fun. My teachers made it really engaging. I was excited to perform. And so I was also excited to teach. So I loved having young students. So I started to dabble in piano teaching, got some certification around that, and just kept going. And it became a real passion of mine to teach. But as I got further and further into teaching, I realized I was actually more interested in and captivated by my students' mental health than I was in their ability to play the piano, because they would often come to piano lessons and bring with them a lot of emotion.
Yeah,
True.
Especially teens, but even young kids, adults. I mean, people would sometimes sit there and just cry and for so many reasons. And I've done that in music lessons.
Right.
And I thought, why is it in this space that we're doing this? I started to volunteer at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health in the city. I would play the piano for an hour a week on an inpatient floor, not knowing what the heck I was doing. I just played stuff I knew, thinking, I'll just do something pleasant. But oh my God, the patients were reacting, coming up to me, singing, crying, telling me their stories, engaging. And I thought, something is going on here. I need to know how to harness this. I need to learn. I need to train. So that's why I went into music therapy.
Wow.
Great.
And how long from that moment to St. Margaret's?
Gosh, that several years. That would have been 2009-ish. And then I started at training in 2011, then started at Princess Margaret interning the following year as I was working through my training. I think that's the timeline.
Wow. If you weren't doing this, would you still be teaching music, you think?
I think it's very likely. I love teaching. I love that I can still teach music therapy now. I don't teach private piano anymore. Maybe I'd be performing a little more, but I feel like I get the chance to perform every day at work. It's just a totally different style and context with different intention. Yeah, I'd probably be writing and teaching and playing differently.
Do you play a lot at home?
Off and on, yeah, with friends and, with my family. Yes. Not probably as much as I used to, but that's still a big part of my life for sure.
Okay.
Do you recommend music therapy outside of the hospital, and how would that look for an average person just going about their day?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in therapy for everybody. I think anyone could benefit because life throws us all kinds of curveballs, and being human is really complicated and beautiful, but hard.
Yeah.
So I'm a big advocate for therapy, period. In terms of your kind of average everyday person engaging in music therapy, it's amazing what happens non-verbally when suddenly you take away words and you use music. So I have recommended it to people I know. People have come to me and said, how do I find a therapist?
Yeah.
For my family, for me, for my kids. a lot of people want it for a specific reason. But I think as the profession grows, we're going to see more and more people integrate the arts into their wellness plans personally and professionally.
Got you. What kind of qualities would you tell someone to look for in a musical therapist?
Ooh. It's such a good question because finding the right fit for a therapist, it's so individual.
Yeah.
And I think some of the best qualities you can look for in any therapist, but absolutely a music therapist, is openness, adaptability, the ability to listen to what your needs are and not come pre-scripted with a plan. I mean, unless that's what you want. But I like the idea of someone who's really open to what you need. Someone who's a highly trained musician, that's important. And I keep thinking just somebody who listens and really listens well.
That's a good one. It's very necessary to listen. A lot of people don't listen well.
What else would you say people should just know about the work that you do overall?
It almost makes me emotional to think about because I'm so passionate about advocating for the work. So thank you for that question. Being musical is being human, and being human is being musical. It's not just for people who specifically enjoy music or are trained. It's such an integral part of who we are as human beings. So it just makes sense to have a music therapist integrated into many healthcare teams across all ages and stages of life, from the time we're born to the time we die. And it's just an inherent part of being alive, integrating rhythm, embodying cadence, harmony, dissonance. It's part of being human. So we're growing as a profession. I want people to know. And my hope and my dream is that music therapy becomes a standard of healthcare. And it's not a surprise to have a music therapist at a hospital anymore. That's my dream. But I think that piece around being human and being musical, that we all carry that, that's what I really want people to take away.
What is the state of music therapy like around the world that you know of?
My sense is it's far more integrated in the United States. There are more training programs. There are more therapists working in different settings. I think it's the organization, the American Music Therapy Association, is bigger than the Canadian Association.
Right.
But we're growing too. So it's bigger, it's more robust, it's more widespread. The same would go for Europe. In Europe, the regulations are different. And I think, again, there's a lot of really robust research happening in Europe. The same goes for Australia. It's massive in different parts of the world. And I think in Canada, it's growing fast, but we have some catching up to do too. I hope I'm not controversial in saying that, but we have a long way to go. And I'm excited about that.
Any idea about what the rest of the world is like? Is it more integrated into cultures outside of the Western world, or is it something that you think could help countries like that a bit more as well?
It is actually quite a Western notion to take music and make it clinical. And if you think about cultures that use music for healing very organically and inherently, it might feel foreign to say, oh, we're going to have a music therapist come in and guide you.
Right.
Because I've heard people say, well, I use music already. Why do I need someone to teach me or show me or guide me in how to do that?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. But, I think there is a role for someone who's trained as a therapist to look at cultures that already use music and just maybe amplify that or empower that or learn from that, actually. Some of my favorite lessons have been from people who don't speak English as a first language, and they teach me so much about how music moves them because they teach me folk songs and they sing with me. But our World Congress of Music Therapy was held in South Africa a few years ago. There's a lot of amazing music therapy and research coming out of Asia. So it is an excellent question. I think music therapy is a strange concept in some cultures, but for the most part, I think we're all aiming for the same goal, which is music for wellness, health, well-being.
Absolutely.
These programs that you're mentioning too, these are all based on live music, right?
Typically, yes. I mean, I will use recorded music if someone wants that, but yes.
Because we did speak with somebody from the Music and Memory organization a while back, and I know they're all recorded music, but I think theirs is also based on dementia and memory issues. Do you see any, is there a correlation between the two or any sort of balance, or any thoughts on the difference between the live recorded music?
There's a lot of crossover, I think, with the great work that the folks at Music and Memory do in music and dementia care. What I always say is the recording, though extremely powerful, does not react to whatever the patient's experience is or the person's experience is.
Right, yeah.
Whereas a live musician can adapt, shift, change tempo, change lyrics, change all kinds of things to really match the person's experience. But, sometimes people just want to hear Elvis, and I'm not, I can't emulate that, or want to hear the sound of something that's so intimately familiar. So I'll pull out my phone, I'll pull out an iPad and not ever resist that, but embody that as much as possible. I just love being able to react in the moment with live music.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I also was wondering too, just on the flip side of things, because how do you feel about where, I guess, school systems kind of are, at least in Ontario? I know there's been a lot of changes and probably reduced efforts to allow students into music programs. How do you feel about that, and what advice do you have for parents or people who are interested in music and might not have the access?
It breaks my heart that music and the arts get cut so quickly and often are the first to get cut.
Yeah.
It really upsets me, but I encourage people to not necessarily only rely on formalized music education for their families, for their kids. We all carry a musical history with us. And I think sharing music that's important to you with your family can be so powerful. Maybe that's listening to music around the dinner table.
Yeah.
And intentionally doing so and choosing music to engage with, whether it's listening, singing, attending live music. Now that it's starting to come back, I am a huge advocate for music in schools, and I think the more the better. But I think we have to also recognize the fact that we can all share music with each other in a way that's very powerful and educational, even if it's not formalized music education.
Absolutely. My dad would turn off the TVs after dinner on Saturday, and we would be forced to, we would play still because we're kids, but we were forced to listen to music, and it wasn't always just what he liked. Sometimes it was country. We became very familiar with guys like Conway Twitty, Kenny Rogers, and just pop stars like Hall & Oates, and just random stuff that I would never have gravitated toward, even listened to. But because every Saturday he intentionally made sure TVs were off, so you're getting music, we're absorbing it. And that, to me, even though it was, he might have had it in an intentional purpose, to us it just seemed normal, and I was able to absorb so much different music from that. And even just being around other people when they play music, just, oh, what is this? And the connection that you can have with people, and you share it, it's so powerful that I love just listening to other, when someone comes in my car, I want to hear what you're listening to. I hear my shit all the time. I want to hear what you, because I can then get something from you, and I kind of feel like I'm learning and experiencing and enjoying a little bit of that person's personality. Does that make sense?
That's such a beautiful example that you shared. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's gorgeous.
Awesome. Did you have a question with that?
No.
I was going to ask you what impact do you think that had on you growing up?
That's a great question. It allowed me to get out of my own box, because I would like rap at the time. So if it wasn't rap, I'm not playing it. But if I hear it, oh, what is that? But I would never have given that a chance, or something that someone else was playing. Like my dad, for example, country music just didn't resonate with me. But every now and then there's that one song. It's like, wow,
takes you back.
I think I like a country song. And then now when I hear it, it's like, oh yeah, country's okay, and then I might listen to another country song, or at least not have my guard up so much anymore with certain music, because my dad never had me in a box, or I was able to, or forced to listen to other people's interests. And that was really important to me growing up, because my whole family, from my brothers to my dad to my aunts, they all listened to such different music that I got such an incredible blend of music that I listen to, that now my iPhone is just you wouldn't even believe some of the music that I have on there. But if it wasn't for my childhood, it wouldn't have opened up all of those doors for me.
That's such an extraordinary example and a perfect example of your own musical autobiography,
Right.
which is so rich and diverse thanks to the influences of your family, of your dad. But this concept that we each carry a musical history and yours is shaped by the people around you, as all of ours are. Just so neat.
It was cool when you said that earlier, that we all have a musical history. And I was like, wow, you're absolutely right. And we always joke about music being in our DNA. It's part of our brand, right? So it's just tuning in or kind of reinforcing some of that we've already believed, like us here in this room and you as well, that there's music is a part of us if we like it or not. It's unavoidable.
Beautiful.
So, Dariki used to rap. Have you ever had to rap? This is this conversation's made me feel a little bit better. But have you ever had to rap for a patient? Because you get requests of all sorts, I'm sure.
That's true. That's a good question.
Yes. And I don't pretend that I have any skill set in that regard.
That's awesome.
Although, boy, do I love rap. And I love a lot of...
That's awesome.
a lot of hip hop and R&B, like just from my own musical history. I just adore it. I suck at it, but I love it.
It's in your heart.
But I love what patients have asked to rap. And I'll provide a backing track, which is wonderful. And what I try and do is just always flip it back to the patient. Like, tell me what you want to hear. Do you want to do it? Or is it the lyrics? Is it the cadence? I had a young guy the other day do some spoken word with me over some music, over a heartbeat, actually. Wow. So yes is the short answer. And I just use, my patients are my best teachers, and I just kind of lean into what they want or what they're looking for.
That's incredible. I think you brought the stethoscope with you.
I sure did.
And I almost forgot, but I do want to see it. So please, can I?
Oh, yeah, this will be our first time seeing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is such a gift. So let's do a little unboxing here.
We'll have to put some pictures up. Actually,
that's a good idea.
I'll tell you a funny story too, but first I'll show you. So thanks, Littman. They make a lot of stethoscopes in general, but if you press in this button on the side, which I'm doing right now, it Bluetooths directly to my phone. So I have an app. And I can hear, I've tried it on myself a few times just to make sure I could do it. You can pick up the heartbeat and it records it graphically, so visually. And you also have the actual audio recording, which then just functions as a track.
Yeah.
So it's easy peasy and really awesome. So I'll tell you my funny story. I was with a patient and I was working on recording their heartbeat. And I had my keyboard out. And I was in full PPE because this guy was in an isolation room.
Right.
And at one point, I just had to put my stethoscope around my neck, kind of like a doctor would. And an actual doctor walked in and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the music therapist was in here."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I am. And she's looking at me. And she's looking at the stethoscope. I said, "I'll explain later. Just let me finish up here."
That's funny.
I wonder if you put it on someone's stomach, if you'll get all those
Gurgles
sounds. Yeah.
Sure will.
Yeah.
I've tried that too. Yes.
That could be fun. Make dubstep out of it.
Totally.
Step out of
Yeah. Just on your process with the stethoscope. So 2 questions, actually. I want to know a little bit about your recording process after you take the heartbeat, like just what you use software-wise or instrument-wise to put a song together.
Yeah.
But also another thing that just occurred to me, because heart rates probably aren't steady or constant at whatever, 60 BPM. I'm sure they fluctuate a bit. Are you taking are you going to manipulate the heartbeat or the BPM, or do you just use whatever it is and kind of flow freely to the fluctuation in the heartbeat?
So both are absolutely possible. And what I have started to play around with, I'm certainly still learning, I will say that, is taking one clip that's really steady and looping that. So then that becomes the track. So it's very steady. And then matching any kind of musical recording to that. Okay. So that's been sort of my strategy as advised by other colleagues who have done this work in the States. They're like, just take a clip that's really steady and loop that. And so what's really cool is I have a little handheld Zoom recorder. I can do it right in the room. If I'm amplifying the heartbeat through my phone, I can record right in the room and just use that track. And that's been how I've been doing it most recently. But GarageBand, you just input the track right in there, and it's super easy to play around with it, loop it, amplify it. And then I'll use my handheld recorder if I need to. So again, I'm playing around with different things. What I find is the most powerful moment, interestingly enough, is when the patient hears their heartbeat amplified. They're like, oh, that's me. That's my life force.
Yeah. I wonder if Matt has any ideas as far as just the recording process or...
Yeah, I can think of thousands. You're using GarageBand, you said, right?
Well, Logic also works really well and is a little better. So sometimes I'll use that. But
Well, there's a lot of tools that creators like to use, especially in electronic music, but I've used them as well in rock stuff, where you can take a recording, like a wavetable synthesizer, for example, where the kernel of sound that you then work out of, usually it's an oscillator. So just imagine a synthesizer plays a note, and then you modify that note and do stuff to it. So what if that note was actually a sample that you recorded? So there's wavetable synthesis, there's granular synthesis, and there's all kinds of stuff that you can do where you are synthesizing sound, but it starts with an actual recording of your choosing.
Very cool.
So that could be fun.
Very cool. I am so open to any and all advice or ideas. My husband's really the audio guy in the house, so sometimes I'm like, hey, can you just help me?
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing way more than I do. So thank you for that. Like, I'm really open to hearing, because this is a new world for me.
For sure.
But an exciting one.
Yeah.
Well, if we could help in any way, just please let us know.
Absolutely.
And we'll
Thank
do whatever
you.
we can.
Thank you.
We definitely have to let you run. We know we've had you for a little while here, but can you let us know what kind of future plans you have for the program, and also just let people know where to find you and what ways they can support what you're doing?
Thanks for that. It's been such a delight to hang out with the three of you and chat about the work. So future plans, there's more and more exciting research projects that I'm getting to tap into. I'm really looking forward to expanding the ones I'm currently doing, especially with young adults and learning about their experiences. Continuing to grow the program and having more students, publishing more, writing more, using technology more in an intentional way. I have a lot of learning to do. Personally, I'm excited to just open up a skill set on guitar, which is a little bit newer for me. I don't use it as much as my students do. And some other instruments that I've acquired that I'm excited to learn more about.
Awesome.
And as things start to come back in person, giving more talks, as I love to do, giving more presentations on music therapy, not just in the hospital, but outside. And I love doing that. And as far as giving me a shout, I will acknowledge Pulse Music Media, which is the umbrella under which my husband Andrew and I share music therapy stories and share live performances. And we are on all different platforms, but you can find us on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok telling all kinds of stories and performing together.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate
stopping by.
Thank you.
all of the work that you do and
doing
the
it.
fact that you were willing to come back and talk to us some more. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the support. It means the world to me.
We'll see you next year, same time.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Bye.
As a podcaster, you know that great content is only half the battle. The other half is finding the right hosting platform to reach your audience. That's where Captivate comes in. With unlimited podcasts, advanced analytics, and personalized support, Captivate has everything you need to grow your audience and monetize your show. Join the thousands of successful podcasters just like us who trust Captivate for their hosting needs. Visit DNAairwaves.com/Captivate today to start your free trial.
A lot of you are familiar with the DNA Project and have been rocking with us for a while, but some of you aren't. A lot of you are faithful listeners of the podcast, but aren't familiar with some of the other work that we do. So I just want to take a quick moment to explain to you a little bit more of what we do. So you're getting married, or you have a friend, a cousin, a sister, somebody you know is getting married. Okay. You've booked your venue, caterers, photographer, all that good stuff. When it comes to live music, most people have no idea where to look. We have you covered. Picture this. During the ceremony, while guests are being seated, or while the bride's walking down the aisle. During the cocktail hour, while guests are just mingling and having a good time. Don't forget about dinner music. That's very important to set the mood while guests eat. And we definitely can't forget the party. Let's get the party started right now with the DNA Project. www.thednaproject.ca for more information.